Welcome back to History of, and today I will be tackling the warrior princess herself, Wonder Woman. I was originally going to do each Justice League member in one big special history of. Well, I'm still going to do that, but I think Wonder Woman has just enough material to create a worthy episode in the History of series. I will be cheating with a ton of it since Wonder Woman has only had three big screen appearances in the last 2 years, and only two canceled films, as well as a lot of speculation to projects that may or may not exist. So, strap in and we will take a look at Wonder Woman in media. First things first is Who's Afraid of Diana Prince in 1967. It was the first 5 minutes of a pilot script written by Stan Hart and Larry Siegel at the commission of Batman producer William Dozier. Very similar to the Batman show, it was meant to be very comedic, with the brunt of the jokes falling on the wimpy Diana Prince. According to sources, if the series got off the ground, it was meant to be in the style of a sitcom, rather than the campy action show of the Batman series. Interestingly enough, it also featured an actress for Prince, Ellie Walker, and an actress for Wonder Woman, Linda Harrison, which is kind of an interesting idea. However, that's where the compliments end. Everything about this pilot excerpt is extremely cringy and far from Marston's original vision of the character, as well as the costume somehow being worse than something you could pick up at Party City. It was definitely a product of the time, and you can clearly see why the series never got off the ground. The full script of the pilot has never made it to the internet either, and maybe that's just for the best. It's on YouTube. Watch if you dare. The second attempt at a Wonder Woman show came 7 years later in the form of a full TV movie featuring Kathy Lee Crosby as the titular character. While slightly better than the original 5 minute pilot excerpt, that's not saying much. It was heavily influenced by the early Bronze Age Wonder Woman that was introduced in 1968, known as the I Ching period. This era of Wonder Woman has Diana not following her Amazonian sisters to a different dimension and opting to stay in man's world. Because of this, her powers were stripped away and had to learn martial arts and weapon skills from a man named I Ching, hence the name of the period, and was more of an espionage character. It was directly influenced by Emma Peel on the British TV show The Avengers. Kinda ironic. However, she was changed back to the more traditional character in 1973. With that change very recent, though, John D.F. Black opted to use the espionage version of the character. With that, we got an extremely weird and completely bonkers TV pilot that luckily never got picked up. It's easy to point and laugh at how ridiculous it is, since not many people know that there is some basis in this version of the character in the comics. But even with that, it's still not very good, mainly because of its execution. I think the more grounded version of Wonder Woman could have definitely worked, especially in a TV show format, but this particular pilot is just too ridiculous that the TV show probably wouldn't have worked no matter what they did. Luckily, this paved the way for the more popular and wondrous version of the character a year later, with that version being the new original Wonder Woman, which premiered on ABC in 1975, and featured the more classic version of Wonder Woman featured in the Golden and Silver Age. In the titular role is Linda Carter, who dons the more classic uniform unlike the Crosby-style jumpsuit. It also changed the setting to World War II, similar to the original comic books from the Golden Age. The TV movie is pretty much the origin story for the TV show, with Steve Trevor crash landing on Paradise Island and Diana rescuing him. She then wins the Olympic-style tournament to take him back to America and is awarded her trademark costume. She drops Steve off at a hospital in America and stops a bank robbery. A subplot happens with Steve Trevor's secretary, with her being a double agent, and Wonder Woman defeating her. The movie ends with Diana becoming the secretary of Trevor and having adventures throughout the show. The first season was on ABC and took place in the 1940s and was an international espionage type of show. The season ended with fantastic ratings, but ABC was adamant to continue the show due to the high budget. CBS then submitted a better deal to the producers of the show under the condition that season 2 take place in modern day. They agreed, and the subsequent two seasons were on CBS until until it was canceled in 1979 due to low ratings. However, this version of Wonder Woman continued in the comics under the Wonder Woman 77 title in 2015, lasting 4 issues, as well as crossing over with Batman 66 and the Bionic Woman. After the success of the TV series, Wonder Woman was pretty much at a standstill, at least in live action, for many years until 2016. Apparently, there was an attempt to create another TV series in 1990. However, I have found no information whatsoever regarding this, with the exception of a mention on Wikipedia, as well as a TV series being developed in the late 90s, but again, no information regarding it, so I don't even know if it's true or not, but might as well mention it anyway. In the late 90s, there were plans for a few Wonder Woman projects that never got off the ground. One was apparently announced in 1996, and Ivan Reitman was in talks to direct, but never went anywhere. There was another in 1999 with Joel Silver producing, and with Sandra Bullock, Angelina Jolie, Catherine Zeta-Jones, and Lucy Lawless being considered to star. Again, that never went anywhere, and little is known about it, or if it even existed. The next big project in regards to Wonder Woman, though, was a cancelled film that had a script written by Joss Whedon of all people. However, the general consensus regarding said script is that not only is it god-awful, but it's incredibly sexist towards the Wonder Woman character. Hypocrite much? Anyway, let's dive right in. In the script, the protagonist is actually Steve Trevor, not Wonder Woman. Already off to a great start. As well as the fact that this Wonder Woman is a spoiled brat ready to start a fight whenever possible, which is again a huge departure from the peace-toting character we all know and love. Also, the origin takes place in present day, unlike the usual story of it taking place in the early 20th century. The main villain would have been a man by the name of Strife, who is known as the towering goddess Eris in the comics, which is a weird change in villain to say the least. It would have featured Wonder Woman being rather helpless through a lot of the script, and dependent on Steve through a lot of it, like surrendering her powers to get him back. It also has her fighting a giant 3-headed mechanical winged monster at the climax. Ares is name dropped, and at the end, before Strife dies as well. A bit of a haphazard description of the script, but I didn't bother to read it and don't plan on it due to the hatred and ridicule it has gotten from fans. Joss Whedon wanted Kobe Smulders as Wonder Woman. However, there were no other casting choices planned, as this got cancelled really early in development, as this was the first draft. While there is a chance that it would have gotten better through rewrites, I'm still happy it got cancelled, because even with small details, this movie sounds awful. Another great video by Cut Short is available if you want to know more. As well as the fact a few weeks ago, Joss Whedon was actually defending this script, saying he was actually really proud of it. I'm not at all surprised, to be honest. In terms of other projects, though, Nicholas Winding Refn, director of Drive, stated he pitched an idea to Warner Brothers about his Wonder Woman film with Christina Hendricks in the lead role. He stated that WB turned him down because they didn't like his vision for the project. Paul Feig also stated he had an idea for a film as well, which would have been a lighter action comedy with Wonder Woman dealing with feminist ideals in the modern world. It apparently would have had Batman and Superman being stereotypical assholes when it came to women, and not as forward-thinking or progressive as they should be. Paul Feig allegedly even called them jerks at one point. He compared his version of Wonder Woman to suffragist Cicely Hamilton, and compared the film itself to something like the first Iron Man film. WB obviously turned down his idea. Thank God. Now is time for the mention of Justice League Mortal, like always. This version of Wonder Woman would have been portrayed by Megan Gale, and would have been rather close to her comic book counterpart, toting about love and peace, and is an honorary member of the UN. We even have a high-res version of the suit, which is certainly interesting. Very similar to pretty much all of the characters in this canceled project. She is a veteran in this world, and it doesn't go into her backstory all that much. In this version, she has gained the affection of Arthur Curry, as well as some not so slight compliments about her beauty from Barry Allen and Wally West. It also shows her and Superman being good friends. I do like this version, and again, I think Gale would have done a really good job if given the chance. Now, finally, we have an actually filmed version of the Wonder Woman character in the form of an unaired pilot from NBC in 2011. This version would have been played by Adrian Palicki, and let's just say there is a reason it never aired. Actually, a lot of reasons why it never aired. The suit looks like that stupid faux leather from the CW shows, but somehow looks even worse. Even with the changed pants, thanks to the fan outcry, it still looks terrible. Also, is it me or does Wonder Woman wearing pants look really stupid? At the climax of the pilot, we do see her wear the trademark thong, but it still looks idiotic and just doesn't look right. I swear to God, the porn version of Wonder Woman looks better than this crap. Anyway, ignoring the shitty look of the character, the pilot itself made too many weird changes to the character that just don't mesh. For instance, Themyscira is never mentioned outside of Diana's last name and the name of a corporation. Yep, her full name in this version is Diana Themyscira, who is the CEO of Themyscira Industries, who in turn owns and operates the concept of Wonder Woman. Okay, she is an extremely powerful busybody who has no free time except as a third identity known as Diana Prince, who sits at home and relaxes when she's not running the corporation. The main villain of the pilot is a woman known as Veronica Cale, who is pretty much a female Lex Luthor, played by Elizabeth Hurley, who is distributing performance-enhancing drugs to teenagers. She is eventually caught by Wonder Woman at the end of the pilot. This pilot has an overall business-like tone to it that makes it really boring and uninteresting to something fantastical and mystical like Wonder Woman, which actually was the point. David E. Kelley wanted to downplay the mystical elements of Wonder Woman as much as possible to sell the concept of a quote-unquote modern world Wonder Woman, which to me makes no sense. Carrie Elways and Pedro Pascal were also featured in the pilot, and Justin Bruning plays Steve Trevor, who is an ex-boyfriend of Diana and is married to someone else, with Tracy Thoms playing Diana's secretary, Etta Candy. The lasso of truth is seen and mentioned but never used, and her origins are never talked about with the exception of a vague passing line in the middle of the episode, so it's actually unclear whether she's an actual Amazon or not. Overall, it's a pretty terrible pilot that thankfully did not get picked up. Next is a short one, and apparently there was a plan to make another Wonder Woman TV show on the CW, planned to debut in 2013, entitled Amazon. Amy Manson was in the running to play Wonder Woman. The pilot script was being written by Alan Heinberg, but the CW passed on it. He was then replaced by Aaron Eli Colite, whatever, to write a second script, which was then eventually passed on as well. It was then delayed to debut in 2014 instead, and Jeff Johns even hinted that Wonder Woman would appear on Arrow, possibly confirming that Amazon would have been in the Arrowverse if the pilot such series was commissioned. However, after Barry Allen's debut in Arrow impressed producers, The Flash was fast-tracked and Amazon was put on pause, with Mike Pedowitz, the CEO of the CW, stating that they wanted to get the character/material right if this were to happen, which is commendable, especially with the last attempt at an adaptation. However, due to the success of the feature film, Amazon has been permanently shelved with no plans to redevelop the idea. The most we've gotten in terms of this is Themyscira being name-dropped on Legends of Tomorrow after Helen of Troy is dropped off there to train with the Amazons. I have a feeling that Amazon would have been a bigger budget Wonder Woman version of Smallville if a series was actually developed. Now we have the Gal Gadot version of Wonder Woman, which first appeared in Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice in 2016. She has a very small role, and it was less than spectacular. She gave an extremely wooden performance, and you could tell she wasn't at all comfortable with the role just yet. In my opinion, she really shouldn't have been in the film at all. She should have been teased with the photo and maybe have an invisible role of a mysterious woman that Bruce only sees in his periphery or something like that. Then have her in a post-credit scene telling Bruce that something is coming, teasing the Justice League, rather than those stupid Justice League teasers that were in the actual movie. I just felt she had very little impact other than for fan service. Ah well, we got what we got, and it was still nice to see Wonder Woman, and her equally as badass theme by Junkie XL. Next is her solo film, which was a slight improvement over her performance in BVS. She's still wooden, but slightly better, and the whole fish out of water trope complements the wooden performance and makes it less obvious. Overall, the film is pretty damn good for the first two thirds. The last third is a CGI mess and turns into a conventional superhero climax. Despite this, it has some interesting themes, a good story, some good performances, and some pretty good villains with both Dr. Poison and Ares. However, I still prefer Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman by far. Now, last film is Justice League, and it is really mediocre. Oh, I went over this the other times I did a history of, and despite some major enjoyability and some good heart, it's a cluttered mess of vision and story. Despite this, Gadot actually gives her best performance as Wonder Woman. She seems very comfortable as the character now and delivers a performance that was one of the better parts of the movie. But unfortunately, it's undermined by a lot of stupid crap in it, like bad jokes, a generic villain, crap editing, and a clunky story. Last but certainly not least is Wonder Woman 2, or whatever it's going to be called, but it's probably going to stay Wonder Woman 2. We've actually gotten some news about this film, unlike some other projects. Patty Jenkins is returning to direct, and Gal Gadot will obviously be returning as Wonder Woman. The setting is going to be during the Cold War in the 1980s, which was confirmed by Jenkins. The villain this time around is going to be Cheetah, played by Kristen Wiig. Ironically, Pedro Pascal was also cast in the film, but for an unknown role. But, unlike most of DC's planned films for the near future, Wonder Woman 2 actually has a release date in 2019 on November 1st, alongside Captain Marvel's solo film Shazam being released earlier in the year on April 5th. It is set to start filming this summer in Virginia, so be excited. So, that's all the info about Wonder Woman. Not nearly as much as Superman and Batman, but a good enough chunk about her history for a good video. Now, next time, I will definitely discuss Justice League members in mini history ofs, part of one long episode, as well as the Justice League itself. So, get pumped.